The smell of freshly baked bread filled the mansion's enormous kitchen that night. The marble floors gleamed under the soft light, and the sound of rain pattering against the windows echoed faintly. It was almost midnight, and everyone in the house had long gone to bed, everyone except for Alexander Reed, the millionaire owner of the mansion, and the tiny shadow sneaking across the floor. Alexander was sitting in his study, unable to sleep again. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years ago, the silence of the mansion had felt heavier. The laughter that once filled these halls was gone, replaced by emptiness and loneliness. He had built a business empire, but even billions couldn't buy peace. As he stood by the window, sipping cold coffee, he heard something unusual, a faint sound coming from the kitchen. At first, he thought it might be one of the maids, but then he realized no one was supposed to be there this late. Curious and cautious, he quietly walked toward the kitchen, his footsteps silent against the floor. The kitchen door was slightly open. He peeked inside. There, standing on a stool near the counter, was a little girl, no older than 7, reaching for a loaf of bread. Her small hands trembled as she tried to slice a piece with a kitchen knife much too big for her. Her clothes were soaked from the rain, her hair tangled, and her face streaked with tears. Alexander froze. He didn't recognize her. Who was she? How did she even get inside? Before he could speak, the girl flinched at a small noise behind her. The loaf fell to the floor, and the knife clattered loudly. She turned, her eyes wide with fear. "Please," she whispered, backing away. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal. I was just hungry." Her voice cracked, and she looked ready to run. But there was nowhere to go. Alexander took a slow breath and stepped closer. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. "Emma." "Emma," he repeated gently. "Where are your parents?" Her lips quivered. "Mama's sick. She can't get up. We haven't eaten since yesterday." For a moment, time seemed to stop. Alexander looked at her, this trembling, rain-soaked child who had risked sneaking into a stranger's home just for a piece of bread. And in that moment, something inside him broke. He put the knife aside and knelt down to her level. "You're not in trouble," he said quietly. "Come with me." Emma shook her head. "You'll call the police." He sighed, his expression softening. "No, sweetheart, I won't." He led her gently to the dining room, turned on the heater, and gave her a warm blanket. Then he went back to the kitchen and prepared a plate, soup, bread, and a glass of milk. When he placed it in front of her, she looked at it in disbelief. "For me," she whispered. He nodded. "Eat." Slowly, she ate like someone who hadn't seen food in days. Every bite seemed to bring a bit of color back to her face. Alexander sat silently, watching her. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had eaten at this table with such gratitude. When she finished, she looked up and said softly, "Thank you, sir. I'll leave now. Please don't tell anyone." But Alexander shook his head. "You're not going anywhere in this storm. You'll stay here tonight." Emma's eyes widened again. "But, my mama, she's waiting for me. She's all alone." He felt a pang in his chest. "Where do you live?" She hesitated but eventually whispered an address in a poor part of town. Without a second thought, Alexander grabbed his coat and car keys. "Let's go," he said. The rain poured harder as they drove through narrow, muddy streets until they reached a small, broken-down building. Emma pointed to a door barely holding its hinges together. Alexander helped her inside. There, lying on a thin mattress, was a woman, frail, pale, and coughing weakly. When she saw Emma, she tried to sit up, tears welling in her eyes. "Emma, you're safe," she cried weakly. "Mama, I brought food," Emma said proudly, showing her the bread. Alexander stood silently, taking in the heartbreaking scene. The room was cold, the walls cracked, and there was no sign of warmth or light. It was clear they'd been struggling for a long time. The woman noticed him and looked frightened. "Sir, I'm so sorry. If she took something, I'll pay you back somehow." He shook his head gently. "She didn't steal. She just needed help." He handed her a basket filled with food from his car and a small envelope. "This is for you. There's money inside. Use it for medicine and food." The woman's lips trembled. "We can't take your money, sir." "You can," he interrupted softly. "And you will." As he turned to leave, Emma ran to him and hugged his leg tightly. "Thank you, mister," she whispered. "You're like an angel." He smiled faintly, his throat tightening. "Take care of your mother, little one." When Alexander returned home that night, the mansion felt different. Warmer somehow. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He thought about Emma's small hands clutching that loaf of bread, her eyes filled with fear and hope. Something about her reminded him of his late daughter, the one he'd lost in an accident years ago. From that night on, Alexander couldn't forget Emma and her mother. He hired doctors to treat the woman's illness, arranged for Emma to attend school, and quietly paid their rent. He never told anyone what he had done. Months passed, and Emma often visited the mansion. She'd bring drawings she made at school and tell him about her day. Slowly, her laughter filled his home, the same laughter he once thought he'd never hear again. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Emma looked up at him and said, "Mister, can I call you Grandpa?" He froze, his eyes glistening. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then he smiled, tears forming. "I'd be honored." From then on, the once lonely millionaire found family again, not through wealth, but through kindness. Years later, when Alexander passed away peacefully in his sleep, his will revealed something that stunned everyone. He had left a portion of his fortune in Emma's name, ensuring she'd never know hunger again. At the funeral, now a grown-up Emma stood beside his grave, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You gave me more than food," she whispered. "You gave me love, and a home." She placed a loaf of bread beside his tombstone, the same kind she had once tried to steal, and smiled through her tears. "Thank you for seeing the hungry little girl, and feeding her soul." In the end, the act of mercy from one lonely millionaire had changed 2 lives forever. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness, even a loaf of bread, can heal the deepest wounds.